Hello guys, today I'll be talking about what is a function, introducing the concept of grade 12 advanced functions. And a function is basically something that takes an input, whatever that input may be, and generates one output from that input. And we can really use, and I can use a simple analogy, but it is flawed in a way to explain what a function is itself. And that analogy is analogy of a vending machine. A vending machine would have numbers on it, and these numbers would correspond to a specific product. For example, number 1 would correspond to the product Coke. Number 2 would correspond to Pepsi. Number 3 would correspond to Diet Coke. And number 4 would correspond to C+. Now, in order for the vending machine to be fully functioning or to be working, each input or each number that you press should correspond to only one product, right? But let's say, for example, that when you press number 4, you also get water. So sometimes you get C+ and sometimes you get water. Then this vending machine would not be functioning, right? The vending machine would not be functioning. This is because for each input you don't get one specific output. So to make things simple, for each x value, for every single x value that you input into the function, into the equation, into the graph, you would get only one y value specifically. So you get one y value. Now the book will define a function as a relation in which there is a unique input for an output. Now what is a relation, right? Let's explain what a relation is, because you have to know all the terms that the definition uses. So a relation, it's simply defined as a set of ordered pairs. Ordered pairs. So now I'm going to give an example of two relations. One would be a function and one would not be a function. So let's go right ahead. So example number 1 would be, I'll give the point 0, 1, 1, 2, and 2, 3. And for the second set, the second relation, I would give 0, 1, similar points, 1, 2, but instead of 2, 3, I'll have 1, 3. So which of these would be a function? Well, by our definition, a function is a relation in which you put in one input, and for that input, so you only produce one possible output for that given input. So to make things simple, you produce only one y value for each x value, right? So that same x value cannot repeat itself in the relation. So let's look if the x values repeat itself. We see 0, we see 1, and we see 2. We don't see any of these repeating itself. But look at the second one. We see 0, we see 1, and we see 1. So 1 repeats itself. So therefore we know that when you put in 1, just like you put in 4 in the vending machine, when you put in 4, you get C+ and you get water. Sometimes you get C+, sometimes you get water. So the vending machine was not functioning. This is not a function. And the book uses the form f of x instead of y. You can have y equals x plus 1, but the book will write it as f of x equals x plus 1. And you should have already come across this form, but f of x just basically means when you input x into the function. So you input x into the function, so imagine this black box, and the function will be f, and then it'll come out as f of x, right? X will be the input, y will be the output, or x will be the input and f of x will be the output. So for example, if you want to look at f of 2, or you want to look at what happens when you input 2 into the equation. When you input 2 in the equation, what would your output be? So what you do is you just put 2 in and you substitute it for the x. So you get f of 2 would be 2 plus 1. F of 2 would be 3. Now you may be wondering right now is, okay, now, we know that, give me an example of what's not a function. I saw a relation, a set of ordered pairs that we did above right here, and we saw one that was not a function. But what about an equation that's not a function, right? Well, right now we can think of a very simple equation. That will be an equation of a circle. We'll let the radius be 3. So 3, 3, -3, and -3. So the equation of a circle would just be x squared plus y squared, which is equal to the radius squared, which is equal to 3 squared, which is equal to 9. So how do we know that this is not a function? Well, we can do something that is called the vertical line test. And the vertical line test is basically you just draw a vertical line on that graph, on that line, on that circle, on that parabola or whatever. You just draw a vertical line. And if that vertical line intersects through more than one point, then you know it's not a function. Why? Because what was our definition above? Our definition above was, for each specific input, we get one output. For every x value, we get one y value. Only one y value, right? So let's plug in the point 2. We'll plug in point 2 for x, and we'll evaluate, right? Because if we do a vertical, we can do simply a vertical line test, and we will know that this is not a function because it intersects through 2 points. And we can do this in a different color. Intersects through 2 points. So x squared plus y squared equals 9. So 2 squared plus y squared is equal to 9. Now we're going to solve for y, right? Y is basically the output, or f of x. So we'll use purple. So y squared is equal to 9 minus 2 squared, which is 4. 9 minus 4. Y squared is equal to 5. Y is equal to plus and minus square root of 5, because when you do the square root of something, it can either be a positive number or a negative number, because a negative number multiplied by itself will be the positive number. So negative 5 times negative 5 is 25, and positive 5 times positive 5 is 25. So the square root of 25 would be positive 5 and negative 5. So the square root of 5 would be positive and negative root 5. So we see that for that one x value, which was 2, we plugged in 2 into the function itself. We got, right, function f, we got positive square root of 5, and we got negative square root of 5. And we can also graph, simply we can graph the second one. We can do that right now. So we have points, this is the origin, 0, 0, and we have 0, 1, we have 1, 2, and we have 1, 3. And we see that this is not a function because it does not pass the vertical line test, right? So anything that does not pass the vertical line test is not a function. So always keep your mind wrapped around the analogy of the vending machine, right? 1 would be Coke, 2 would be Pepsi, 3 would be Diet Coke, or whatever you have, or